Nick Sergey is with us. Nick is the Director of Research at the Center for Media and Democracy. They run ALEC Exposed and SourceWatch and PRWatch, prwatch.org, alecexposed.org. Really, really, really great websites. And the American Legislative Exchange Council, founded in part by Paul Weyrich, the guy who said, I don't want everybody to vote. Elections have never been won by the majority, or have never been decided by the majority of people since the beginning of time, and they are not now. In fact, frankly, our leverage in the elections goes up as the voting populace goes down. There, I did it word for word, I think, verbatim. We didn't even have to play the clip. Nick, welcome.
Tom, hi. That was a very good impression of Paul Weyrich.
Yeah. Well, thank you. But in any case, the American Legislative Exchange Council, which he helped found back in '73, I think it was, is having their annual meeting this week.
Today, in fact, they've begun today in downtown Chicago.
Okay, so tell me about it.
Well, so ALEC was actually founded in Chicago in 1973. So this year is both significant for them because they're celebrating 40 years of doing what they do, which, as you well know, is working in the interests of their corporate funders in order to push legislation that helps those corporate funders at the state level.
Well, in fact, that legislation is more often than not written by those corporate funders.
It is, yeah. They bring them directly to conferences such as the one that's happening right now and just across the road from me, in fact, in downtown Chicago. It's 3 days. They have a jam-packed agenda. We managed to get hold of a copy. They do their best to keep all of these documents secret. We launched ALEC Exposed Project 2 years ago, and we've been tracking their activities now in a number of ways. But one of the ways that we keep track of what's on their agenda and how they're communicating with legislators between these meetings is through filing public records requests. And ALEC is actually now claiming exemption from all public record laws in every single state in the country, and we're fighting them on that issue in Wisconsin.
We had Congressman Mark Pocan on this program when he was a state representative from Wisconsin, as I recall, maybe Minnesota, whichever. Wisconsin, yeah. And he called into the program as he was being thrown out of an ALEC meeting a couple of years ago. I mean, he had infiltrated. Somehow he had gotten a hold of, from a friend of his who was a Republican, one of the application forms to show up at an ALEC meeting. He filled it out and submitted it, and they said, lo and behold, he got credentials. And then he was just walking down the hall, and some guy comes up and says, "I know you. You're a Democrat." And he was like, and they chased him out of the place.
Yeah. I actually got I got press credentials, which slightly surprised me, but they issued me press credentials for their last conference, which was in Oklahoma City, and I lasted 6 minutes inside the venue before they came up, and it later transpired that they had a sheet with 8 faces on, 4 of whom are from my organization, the Center for Media and Democracy, and 4 other reporters and investigators who've been tracking ALEC, and so that's why I only asked last.
You have to wonder why the most prominent and one of the most powerful and well-funded conservative organizations in the country, I would say the most powerful when it comes to producing and executing a legislative agenda. They get over 200 laws passed around the country every year. Why they would want to operate in this Stalin-esque mode where anybody who disagrees with them is not only not invited, but those people are actively driven out and they don't allow the press in. Why?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think they're embarrassed about revealing the interests and the influence that happen behind these closed doors, because we know from these meeting agendas that it really is, as you say, corporations, corporate lobbyists bringing those bills directly to legislators, and they are still maintaining the fact, they say, that they're a nonpartisan organization, which is completely laughable. It's actually worse than 200 bills. We have a report that we're releasing tomorrow, which looks at the ALEC agenda in 2013, and we identified 466 ALEC bills that were introduced this session, including 52 voter ID measures, which they say they are no longer promoting. But
they no longer have to promote them. They've written them. They've been passed in states, and anybody can just get the language and clone it, rewrite it.
Yeah, absolutely. We also identified 10 further stand your ground bills introduced in 10 separate states this session, and so that bill, which they've also disavowed, continues to roll out.
So the stand your ground, shoot first bills are continuing to roll across the states.
They are, yeah, but people in Chicago, which obviously is a city which suffers a lot from gun violence, they are pushing back. There were several protests that occurred this morning outside the Palmer House Hilton in downtown Chicago, but also tomorrow there's going to be a rally at noon, and there are quite a large number of people that are expected. And if anybody's able to, I would encourage people to come down and support that. And there's also a film screening tonight. People are going to be watching the United States of ALEC documentary, that great Bill Moyers piece that he did for PBS, and there's going to be a panel discussion.
That is great. And where is that going to be, and how can people learn about it?
That's at the University Center.
Okay, and people can go to alecexposed.org for that information?
I don't know if the information's there, but it's 6 p.m. at the University Center, and otherwise people can go to alecexposed.org, and we have all sorts of information and links.
Right, for people who are listening. Are you seeing Republican state legislators, state senators, and state representatives and state assemblymen and women from all over the country showing up here in Chicago?
It is actually crazy. I wandered inside the lobby. I couldn't get into the areas that there was heavy security in the areas where the meetings were happening, but the place was awash with old white men. It seemed to be a mixture of lobbyists and legislators. Right.
Yeah. Well, this is their last stand. I mean, this is the we're looking at the dregs of the Republican Party here. I mean, this is they've been corrupting the Republican Party for how many years?
Yeah, 40 years. 40
years. And it's only in the last couple of years that you guys with alecexposed.org and others have outed them, and now they're, it's sort of like the cockroaches, they're hiding from the light. And I think that says an awful lot about, the Koch brothers who fund them and the other billionaires who fund them and their specific agenda. So, Koch brothers, if you want to spell it right, if you want to Google it, it's Koch brothers. Anyhow, Nick Sergey. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Tom.
Keep up the great work. alecexposed.org. Check it out.